Navy deployed to escort tankers. Emergency government insurance created from scratch because no company on Earth will cover the ships. A little high oil prices for a little while. Those were his words this week. $3.20 a gallon. $7 in California. Biggest gas spike in 4 years. That is what desperation looks like. And here is why it is desperation. The gasoline Americans pump every morning, most of it starts as Canadian crude in a Midwest refinery. Their own refining industry said it publicly. There is no easy fit-for-purpose replacement. 99.89% of heavy crude in Midwest refineries comes from Canada. Those systems were purpose-built for Canadian supply. Nothing else fits. Trump knew. That is why he set the tariff on Canadian energy at 10%. Not 25% like everything else. He could not afford to lose it. Then he told the world, "We don't need their oil and gas," and Canada sold it. Pipeline running west. China is now the biggest customer. Countries calling Ottawa asking for more. Not one of them is the United States. Here is the promise, word for word. February 25th, State of the Union. 108 minutes, longest in modern history. Gas is below $2.30 in most states, 85 cents in Iowa. The audience clapped. Here is what they were clapping for. Real national average that night, $2.98. Iowa, $2.50. Number of gas stations in the entire country below $2? 8. Not 8,000. Not 800. 8 stations out of 150,000. A month before that, Davos, in front of every global leader. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody. Canada was sending 4.1 million barrels a day flowing south. 3 out of every 5 imported barrels entering the United States. Crude that Midwest refineries turn into the gasoline Americans pump every morning. He said he didn't need it. 3 days after the State of the Union, he did the one thing that blew up the price of gas in America. Largest military operation in the Middle East since 2003. Iran sits above the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's energy passes through that water every day. When it gets disrupted, gas prices spike everywhere. One connected system. When the strikes hit, Iran choked it shut. Day 1, 70% of shipping gone. Day 3, 94%. But here is the part that makes you smarter than anyone reading headlines. It was not the military that shut it down. It was insurance companies. The firms that cover 90% of every ship on Earth looked at that waterway and walked away. Canceled coverage overnight. Done. No insurance, no ship sales. No ship sales. Supply drops. Supply drops, gas price goes up everywhere, including America. That simple. The insurance decision was not political. It was actuarial. Lloyd's of London calculated the probability of a tanker being hit and determined the risk exceeded acceptable parameters. Other firms followed within hours. When one major insurer pulls coverage, the entire market collapses. The tanker might be worth $200 million. The cargo, another $100 million. Liability if it sinks, potentially billions. No insurance company writes that policy when missiles are flying. Trump said the Navy would escort tankers. Does not matter. Without insurance, no tanker loads cargo. You cannot escort a ship that will not sail. He created emergency government insurance. Ships still not moving. No captain takes a vessel through a waterway where tankers are burning, and the other side said it would set the next one on fire. Now here is what that did to American gas prices. Monday, 12 cents in a single day. Biggest gas spike since Russia invaded Ukraine. Tuesday, 11 cents more overnight. 3.11. Wednesday, 3.20, still climbing. Cincinnati, 80 cents higher in one day. A woman in Mississippi filled her tank, $15 more than last week. Same gas. Massachusetts, $4 premium. California, $7 a gallon at gas stations in America. Diesel hit top 10 all-time spike. Diesel moves the trucks that carry groceries. American groceries already cost more than 4 years ago. Now the trucks delivering them cost more too. Spring planting season. Farmers run on diesel. Every penny goes straight to the price of bread, milk, eggs. Goldman Sachs projections. 5 more weeks of this and oil hits $100 a barrel. That is $4 gas nationally. 7 days ago, gas was below $2.30. Today, $3.20. 7 in California. No end date. No fix in sight. Now, here is the part that turns a gas price crisis into something permanent. While Americans were watching the price climb, Canada was somewhere else entirely. Trans Mountain Pipeline tripled capacity. 890,000 barrels a day flowing to the Pacific, running since 2024. China has overtaken the United States as Canada's biggest customer on that route. The same supply Trump tariffed. The same supply he said he didn't need. The supply that was keeping American gas cheap for decades. China is buying it right now, today, paying more than America ever did. LNG Canada, $40 billion, largest private investment in Canadian history. First tanker to Asia shipped in January. Contracts locked until the 2040s. Alberta, record production, 4th largest producer on Earth. Canada is on track to become one of the largest energy suppliers on the planet. 100 million tons of LNG per year. That is the target. And this week, Canada's energy minister on camera. Countries are calling. Nervous countries, insecure countries picking up the phone asking how fast Canada can ship energy. He said the world is feeling incredibly insecure and that Canada offers an alternative to that vulnerability. Not calling Washington, calling Ottawa. And while American gas prices were breaking records, Carney was in Australia signing deals. Before that, India. $5.5 billion. Uranium, trade, full free trade agreement targeting December. $2.6 billion in uranium alone. Saskatchewan to Indian reactors, locked through 2035. 2.5 years ago, Canada and India had expelled each other's diplomats. Frozen. Barely speaking. Carney walked in and turned it into $5.5 billion in 4 days. Modi praised him by name, called him a friend. They set a target to double trade to $70 billion a year, launched negotiations for a full free trade agreement. None of it runs through Washington. Not $1. Then Australia. Then Japan. 4 continents. Billions committed. Alberta just announced a brand new million-barrel-per-day pipeline to the West Coast. Deadline July 1st. A second artery to the Pacific. More supply permanently pointed away from America. And here is the line that defines this moment. Canada's energy minister said, "Canada will never use our resources as a coercive tool." He did not have to say that. He said it because someone else just did. Here is why none of this reverses. Those Midwest refineries, the ones turning Canadian crude into American gasoline, cannot switch. Their own industry said it. Pipelines only flow south from Canada to the United States. There is no way to get Texas crude to a refinery in Minnesota. The infrastructure does not exist. America produces more light crude than anyone. But those refineries were built for heavy. You cannot pour light crude into a heavy system and get gasoline out. It does not work. The molecular composition is different. The refining equipment is calibrated for specific crude characteristics. Retooling a refinery to process different crude types costs billions and takes years. That dependency is why American gas was cheap. And now the supply those refineries depend on is heading west to buyers who pay more under contracts that run to the 2040s. Pipelines west, not south. Contracts signed, not negotiable. Tankers scheduled, not waiting. Even if Trump called Ottawa tomorrow and dropped every tariff, those volumes are committed. Asia pays more. The premium is structural. Asian buyers need energy security and will pay for reliability. China, Japan, South Korea, India learned from this crisis that Middle East supply is vulnerable. Canadian supply through Pacific routes is not. Pipelines that are built do not unbuild. Contracts that are signed do not unsign. Gas that goes up on structural shortage does not come back down on a handshake. And countries that were told they were not needed do not forget. That is not a price spike. That is a structural shift. And structural shifts do not reverse. The insurance companies that walked away from Hormuz are not coming back based on reassurances. They are actuarial firms. They calculate risk mathematically. As long as the threat exists, the coverage does not. As long as the coverage does not exist, the ships do not sail. As long as the ships do not sail, the supply does not flow. And while that supply is frozen, the refineries that depend on it either pay dramatically higher prices for whatever supply gets through, or they reduce output. Either way, American consumers pay more at the pump. And every week that passes with high prices, more Americans ask why this is happening. The answer is simple. America was told it had energy independence. America was told it did not need Canadian oil and gas. America was told prices would stay low. Then, the one corridor America did depend on shut down, and the Canadian supply America actually needed had already been redirected to buyers who never took it for granted. This is what happens when rhetoric meets reality. When political messaging collides with infrastructure that cannot be rebuilt overnight. When promises are made by people who do not understand the systems they are talking about. American gas was cheap because of Canada. Not because of domestic production. Not because of fracking. Because 4 million barrels a day of Canadian heavy crude flowed south into refineries engineered to process it into gasoline. Americans bought for under $3 a gallon. That system worked for decades. Reliable, predictable, mutually beneficial. Then it was called unnecessary. Then it was tariffed. Then it was replaced by Asian contracts. And now Americans are paying $7 a gallon in California. The answer is standing in Ottawa, signing deals in India, addressing parliaments in Australia, and redirecting energy supply to markets that never questioned whether they needed it. Canada did not create this crisis. Canada responded to being told it was not needed by finding buyers who disagree. And those buyers are signing 20-year contracts while American drivers are paying record prices. That is the picture. That is what actually happened. And that is why it does not reverse.